three dresses, shown here on display at Riverside Museum, were designed and manufactured in Glasgow by local fashion company Marion Donaldson. The company was started in 1966 by husband and wife team Marion and David Donaldson, using a tabletop Singer sewing machine on their kitchen table at home at 158 Hill Street, Garnet Hill, Glasgow. This mini dress from 1966 is made from blue cotton velveteen, printed with a blue and brown pattern of flowers with paisley motifs. It has a short standing collar, straight A-line body and slightly wide full-length sleeves. The cloth was purchased from Liberty & Co. London. David recalls that, "We made this dress for my mother Katie when she was dating DJ Stuart Henry." Another mini dress made in the same year uses Heel's furnishing fabric, purchased from Elder's interior shop at Charing Cross. This cotton is printed with a bold design in blue, green and purple. Very short, colourful dresses like this one were sold in some of Glasgow's most swinging boutiques, like In Gear on Gibson Street, which sold a mix of different designer labels. As the Marion Donaldson label took off, manufacturing moved to a factory. At this date, there were 98 cut, make and trim factories in Glasgow, making clothes for high street retailers. This third mini dress is from 1967 to 68 and is purple with a green collar and two green stripes around the skirt. It was made with Heather Mills tweed. Marianne later recalled, "We just couldn't make enough of these. This style of dress was so popular we made lots of different versions, although the lime green ones didn't sell as well." By the end of the decade, Marion Donaldson brand was turning over £300,000, although always selling via other retailers and never through their own shops. Not bad for a business that started with only £50 capital.
It's the weekend, and in the 1960s, the Barrows in the East End of Glasgow was the place to be. Here people came to shopping and looking at some of the second-hand goods, looking for bargains at some of the stalls. It was a place to meet people, really sociable, come and see some of the salesmen with their spiels, their patter, explaining, selling the goods, which was as much a show, much as a draw, as the actual items they were selling. The Barrows provided a real boost these days in Glasgow when the city was beginning to experience some industrial decline. I think this was really part of the remains of that sort of gallus Glasgow.
The 60s was a really interesting time for radio because in 1964 the first ever pirate radios came into being. So they were called Radio Caroline and Radio Atlanta, and they were on ships off the coast of Essex in the North Sea, and they were basically on ships because of a loophole in the law. Because they were on ships, they became known as pirate radio stations, and that's the term used for unlicensed radio stations to this day. So in 1967, the Marine Bill came in that outlawed them. So from 64 to 67, you had this era of pirate radio stations where they were playing American style music. So for young people in the 60s, it was quite an exciting time for radio. They also had these battery operated portable radios. So it just meant that they moved from kind of radios that were like furniture and quite staid radio programs to these exciting pirate American style radio programs and portable radios, which were really fun and nice to look at. This is a Hacker Herald RP35 radio. It's battery operated and it's from the 1960s. Hacker was a British company who never exported to the US or anywhere else in the world, which means that it's a really well-known company here, but not in the rest of the world. It was a high-end radio, so it was quite expensive. Not everyone would own a radio like this. Hacker was known for incredibly good sound quality. It didn't have such a good bandwidth, so it tended to top out at 101 to 104 megahertz. So that was a little bit of a letdown, but other than that, it was an incredibly high quality radio, made to be tough, It was easy to disassemble for service, and it had a really beautiful design. You can see that this one is a beautiful pink colour, and they really stood out in design terms.
This was the very first Hillman imp to come off the production line at the Linwood factory just outside Paisley in 1963. The Hillman imp really was the car which held so much promise, and there was so much optimism and hope around it. This was the first time in over 30 years that a car had been built in Scotland, not since the Argyll Motor Car Company, who were based in Alexandria. This car was touted as a car of the future and very innovative, and it had all these terrific features like synchromesh gearbox encased in aluminium, pneumatic throttle, automatic choke, but last but not least, it had its 45-degree angled engine placed in the boot, and this rear layout for a car was really seen as at odds with what was happening in the motor trade. The other really interesting thing though about the Imp was they wanted to be a rival to the Mini, which was launched in 1959. And this all came about as a result of the Suez Crisis in 1956. And because there was widespread fuel rationing, people started getting more anxious about having a car that was actually fuel efficient. And so Roots, who were the manufacturers of the Imp, just like the Mini, wanted a car which could achieve good miles per gallon. And what they were aiming for with this car was 60 miles per gallon. They also wanted it to be a family car, so it would fit comfortably 2 adults and 2 children, but that it would be able to achieve a top speed of 60 miles an hour, and that ultimately it would be fun to drive. In reality, what happened was that although they did manage to achieve a top speed of 75 miles an hour, and they could achieve 0 to 60 in just 21 seconds, which was 4 seconds faster than the Mini could, but it was actually its miles per gallon really let it down. It could only achieve something like 36 miles per gallon, which was almost half of what the designers had planned. But nevertheless, the car was such a great boon for Scotland, or at least so it was thought. Here was somewhere that was economically depressed, and suddenly this new factory, which was dedicated to building only this car, would provide employment for 5,000 people. So it's such a lovely car. I think people have so much affection for it. Sadly, it was beset by lots of problems which gained negative publicity, and it was very hard for the Imp to shake off that image. The press had given it really, really good reviews. They'd said its performance was almost as good, if not better, than some family saloons with twice the engine size. So many great features. It was praised for having an ergonomic dashboard, having the rear window with its top hinges meant that it increased the ability to have more space inside for luggage. And it's just such a lovely, lovely car with so much personality.
For a good night out in the early 60s, what better to do than visit one of the Glasgow's many variety theatres like the Metropole. Here you could see a programme of several acts, singing, dancing, comedy, some drama, all rolled into one night's entertainment. These programmes from the Metropole Theatre show some of the varied acts on show. We have Grace and Colin Murray, popularly known as Mr. and Mrs. Glasgow. Their act, heading the bill here, was comedy duo, but they also sang, and Grace played the piano. variety programmes changed quite regularly. So if we move into 1961, we have a programme here that focuses on Irish song and dance. Heading the programme here with Bridie Gallagher and Patrick O'Hagan. Bridie was regarded as Ireland's first international pop star. So you had your choice of what you'd like to go and see.